Welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to be doing a review of The Black Ship by Rick Riordan, the first book in the Sun and the Star trilogy. And let's go ahead and dive into it. Okay, so first things first, this was an absolute joy to read. Rick Riordan never writes bad books. I feel like that's just kind of a fact at this point. But with this book, he did not hold back. We have fantastic characters. We have a great plot. We have some really exciting world building. I could not put this book down. Now, before we get started, I do need to warn you guys. This video will contain spoilers for the entirety of the Kane Chronicles, as well as the Trials of Apollo series and the Magnus Chase series. If you have not read those books, I highly suggest that you do because they are amazing. But if you have read those books, or you don't care about spoilers, then stick around. Okay, so right off the bat, I want to talk about the narrator for this audiobook, which is J.D. Jackson. He did an absolutely fantastic job. I am not surprised to learn that he is a semi-regular narrator for Audible Originals, because his voice work here is phenomenal. He gives each character their own distinct voice, and his portrayal of Nico D'Angelo had me weak. It was so good. J.D. Jackson also narrates the Magnus Chase series, and it was great to hear him return. His interpretation of the characters in that series is just as good as the original cast. Overall, I think it's safe to say that this is an excellent audio performance. As for the story itself, it picks up shortly after the events of the Sword of Summer. Now, if you have read the Magnus Chase series, you know exactly what I mean when I say that. But for those who haven't, basically, there was this giant war between the gods of Norse and Greek mythology, which ended up with both sides suffering heavy losses and agreeing to a treaty. So now it has been 5 years since that treaty, and the Norse and Greek camps have been getting along pretty well. But of course, you can imagine that won't last forever. One day, while training, Annabeth Chase and her boyfriend, the son of Poseidon, get attacked by a mysterious monster. They barely manage to defeat it, but it's clear that something is up. Later, Annabeth receives a dream from Athena telling her to travel to Alaska and retrieve an artifact called the Aegis of the North. Meanwhile, at Camp Half-Blood, Magnus Chase and his friends become embroiled in a conflict with some giants and trolls who have come to attack the camp. When reinforcements fail to arrive in time, they're forced to flee. As it turns out, those attacks on Camp Half-Blood were only a distraction, because while everyone's attention was focused on New York, the Egyptian god Set pulled a sneaky move and stole an extremely powerful artifact known as the Ibis of Thoth from the British Museum. Realizing how dangerous this could be, Annabeth and the Big Three, along with a few other demigods, set off to Alaska to retrieve the Aegis. However, they soon find themselves in a race against time, as Set has already begun using the Ibis to raise an army of monsters in Alaska with the intention of destroying Camp Half-Blood. In order to defeat Set, the group must work together with some unlikely allies, including some old enemies. Along the way, they learn more about the history of the Aegis and the Ibis and the prophecy that surrounds them. Ultimately, it's a story about unity, tolerance, and acceptance. It also has a lot of themes regarding the treatment of minorities and immigrants, and how fear of the unknown often leads to discrimination and violence. As far as the plot goes, it's fast-paced and action-packed from beginning to end. There's always something happening that keeps you on the edge of your seat. And while the main plot is very intriguing, we also get some nice character development and world building sprinkled throughout. As the story progresses, we learn more about the Ibis and the Aegis and the prophecy that surrounds them. We also learn more about the characters and their relationships with each other. I found myself invested in their stories, and I was rooting for them the whole way through. Another thing I really enjoyed about this book was the setting. Alaska is not a place I'm very familiar with, but Mr. Riordan did such a great job describing it that I felt like I was right there with the characters. Now, This is a Rick Riordan book, so you can probably guess that the dialogue is witty and sarcastic, and I did enjoy the banter between the characters. However, I found it to be slightly less funny than his other books. I don't know if it was because I was listening to the audiobook and the narration didn't quite land all the jokes for me, or if it was just because I was more invested in the plot than the humor this time around. Either way, the dialogue still served its purpose of developing the characters and moving the plot forward. Moving on to the characters, they're all really well developed and relatable. Annabeth is a strong and intelligent leader who's still dealing with the trauma of the giant war. Magnus is a sarcastic and witty hero who's trying to find his place in the world. Alex is a loyal and protective little sister who's hiding a secret. And Nico is a brooding and mysterious demigod who's struggling with his feelings of guilt and responsibility. The supporting characters are just as interesting, and they all work together to create a really engaging story. Now, if you've read any of Mr. Riordan's other books, then you'll be happy to know that several characters make cameos in this book. Some of these characters have larger roles, while others only appear for a short time. But it was fun to see them interact with the new characters, and it gave a nice sense of continuity to the story. I also thought it was cool how Mr. Riordan seamlessly weaves in references to Egyptian, Norse, and Greek mythology. It's not overwhelming, but it adds a nice layer of depth to the story. Now, this is a young adult book, so you can probably guess that there's some romance in this story. The romance in this book is handled well, and it doesn't take away from the plot. In fact, it adds to the character development, and it's a nice subplot. Overall, I think this book is a great start to a new series. The characters are well developed and relatable. The plot is fast-paced and action-packed. The world building is immersive and the writing is witty and sarcastic. I highly recommend this book to anyone who enjoys adventure stories with a mythological twist. And I can't wait to see where Mr. Riordan takes us next in the Sun and the Star trilogy. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts on the Black Ship in the comments below. And let's go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.